Hello and welcome to lesson 52. Today, as you saw, we are going to do past perfect. So let's get started. Right, so today we're going to look at the use of past perfect, the form of past perfect in affirmative sentences, the form of past perfect in negative sentences, and the form of past perfect in questions. Not used a lot, but still good to know. Okay, so I'm going to start by putting a sentence on the screen, and this sentence is in fact, it's two sentences in past simple. Okay, so just have a look at the example. You need to know some vocabulary for this sentence, maybe. So, do you know what this is? Do you know? Look. This isn't mine, this is my daughter's. I'm going to see if she has any money. Wow, yes, she has got money. She's got 10 euros. I don't know how she's got 10 euros, my lucky daughter. Okay, so this is a wallet. This is a wallet. Sometimes in British English we say purse, but for the sake of this example, we're going to say wallet. Okay, so this is a wallet. All right, so now go and have a look at the example here. So you've got, I forgot my wallet, I went back to the hotel. I forgot my wallet, meaning it was in the hotel. So I went back to the hotel. So here you've got the first action, forgetting the wallet, and the second action, go back to the hotel. So I forgot my wallet, I went back to the hotel. Now, compare with this sentence. I went back to the hotel because I had forgotten my wallet. I went back to the hotel because I had forgotten my wallet. So here you can see we're using past perfect to say the order, because here, even though the yellow one, I went back to the hotel, is the second action in time, it is the first action in the sentence. So can you see here the past perfect? Can you see? Yes, had forgotten. Okay, let's have a look at another example. Oh yes, I wanted to mention past perfect is like the past of the past. So you say, for example, yesterday I saw my friend. Here's my friend. Okay. Sorry. There we are. He was happy because he had got the job. Okay. So he was happy at that moment in the past of the past, because he had got the job. Okay, now another example. I was tired because I hadn't slept. I was tired because I hadn't slept. So here you've got I was tired because I hadn't slept. If you want to write down the example, you can pause the video now. So another example, he was ill because he had eaten some bad food. He was ill because he had eaten some bad food. He was ill because he had eaten some bad food before the moment he was ill. So it's the past of the past. I failed the exam because I hadn't studied. I failed the exam because I hadn't studied. So again, here you've got, I failed the exam. It's the first action in the sentence, but in time, it was the second action. I failed the exam because I hadn't studied. Okay, so now you've had lots of examples. Here is the form. So notice you've got the subject and the auxiliary here. So So you can see the auxiliary verb here in orange. And notice it's had, and it can be contracted. In fact, I had can be contracted. I'm sorry, on the table it doesn't have it, but you can say I had or I'd. You had or you'd. He had or he'd. She had or she'd. It had or it'd. It'd. We had or we'd. They had or they'd. Okay? And the same, in the negative, you contract, usually you contract the auxiliary verb and the not. You can say I'd not been, but sounds a bit clumsy. So we prefer to contract the hadn't. Had not, hadn't, hadn't, hadn't. I hadn't studied. You hadn't slept. We hadn't eaten. We hadn't forgotten. They hadn't travelled. Okay, and notice the past participle here. We've got some examples. We've got 2 regular verbs here and 3 irregular verbs. Okay, can you see the regular verbs? Yes, studied and travelled. They're regular verbs because they're the same. In the past simple and the past participle is the same. Okay, so yesterday I studied, or I hadn't studied. Okay, so remember the past participle of regular verbs is the same. Okay, so for example, want, wanted, listen, listened, talk, talked, travel, travelled, like, liked, work, worked, walk, walked, watch, watched. Watched, one of my favourite words in English, watched. Okay, so let's go back to, do you know, there's a mosquito under the table. And in Barcelona, we have a lot of mosquitoes, and I don't like mosquitoes. Sorry if I keep doing this because I'm looking for the mosquito. Okay, right, so questions. How do we form the question? Well, of course, the subject and the auxiliary changes place. Have a look. You see? They have changed place. So, had I or hadn't I? Had you or hadn't you? Had he or hadn't he? Had we or hadn't we? Had they or hadn't they? Okay. With the past participle. Okay, so let's look at some examples now. She didn't want to go to the party because she hadn't washed her hair. Can you see the past perfect? Yes? Okay. Now, I want you to listen to me say the sentence 3 times, and then I want you to pause the video and read the sentence 3, 4, 5 times until you feel comfortable. So first, listen to the pronunciation. She didn't want to go to the party because she hadn't washed her hair. She didn't want to go to the party because she hadn't washed her hair. She didn't want to go to the party because she hadn't washed her hair. Okay, now the second sentence. My mother was angry because I hadn't called her for a week. My mother was angry because I hadn't called her for a week. Notice the for a week is for a week, for a week, for a week. And my mother was angry. My mother was angry because I hadn't called her. If you say called her, that's okay. Called her or call. I'm from London, so I say called her. So my mother was angry because I hadn't called her for a week. Now pause the video and read the sentence 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Okay, let's look at some more examples now. The girl was hungry because she hadn't had any breakfast. The girl was hungry because she hadn't had any breakfast. The girl was hungry because she hadn't had any breakfast. Now notice here you've got the auxiliary verb had, or hadn't in this case, and the main verb had, which we give a strong pronunciation. Hadn't had, hadn't had. The girl was hungry because she hadn't had any breakfast. Pause the video now and repeat it several times. Okay, next sentence. So, my sister was tired because she'd worked all night. My sister was tired because she'd worked all night. My sister was tired because she'd worked all night. Okay, now you pause the video and read the sentence. Okay, and now I'm going to go. We have two examples here with questions. Questions are not used very frequently in past perfect. Past perfect is usually used in sentences with past simple, if you look at all the examples. However, sometimes you will need to use it. So here we go. Had you been there before? Had you been there before? Had you been there before? Had he known about the accident? Had he known about the accident? Excuse me. Had he known about the accident? Okay. More examples. I didn't pass my English exam because I hadn't studied. I didn't pass my English exam because I hadn't studied. I went back to the station because I had lost my bag. I went back to the station because I had lost my bag. I went back to the station because I had lost my bag. Okay, now pause the video and read the sentences 2 or 3 times. Okay, so quite a lot of information. You will notice that we use past perfect, usually with past simple. So there are some things to consider. Here are the things to consider. Okay, so we have past perfect is usually used with past simple, and it is only used when necessary to help understand the order of events. Okay, and don't worry, we will have more practice. So in the next class, and the following class, we're going, what is that noise? We're going to see lots of examples of past perfect in context, okay, so that you can understand it. I'm sorry, I think there's a plane flying. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's very noisy. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at what we did in today's class. It was a good class, and we looked at past perfect in affirmative sentences, negative sentences, and we looked at past perfect, its form and its use. Okay, and let me just, so this is what we looked at, and this is the end of today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next lesson. Take care for today. Yeah. Bye-bye. See you in lesson 53.